What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore. Before we get into today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button to be notified when more content from us comes out. In today's episode, I am joined by Coach Spencer Arnold. Spencer is one of the most positive people you are ever going to meet, and in this conversation, we talk about how he used to work with his Olympic lifting athletes and how he would put extra pressure on them in the middle of training to help get the most out of them, and then how he applies that same coaching strategy with his athletes now. Like I said, Spencer is one of the most positive people you've ever met. I'm going to stop talking. Enjoy this episode. So this is going to be probably episode 10 of all the different interviews that Ross has kind of spurred. And so DeMarco was the one that referred me and saying, hey, you got to talk to Spencer. Spencer, why do you think DeMarco said that about you? What made, and you got to, I'm not asking you why you're a really good coach. Why did Nick DeMarco say he wanted to hear from you thinking that you're a good coach? Why would Nick say that about you?
It's funny. That's a good question because Nick in my mind is like one of the dudes out there that I'm trying to get everything out of his brain. Probably just because I think for high school strength conditioning 10 years ago was a field that was really deplorable. It was the word I would use. And in the last 10 years, we've seen some guys who are really good get in it. And I think I'm just one of the voices in the high school strength world that are doing things at a high level. I don't ever feel like we've arrived as a program that I'm not really satisfied with where we are now, and so I'm constantly chasing what's the next thing or how can we make our program better. And I think for some degree I have an Olympic lifting background that's not so what's the word I want to use here? Not so like specialist. If you don't do Olympic lifts, you suck. Kind of viewpoint. And so I would imagine that's it, especially from that end. I will not ever not explore something for our high school if I think it can make us better. And in a lot of ways, that's proved to be really, really helpful for us. And so I think that's probably it. The Olympic lifts, and then just the desire to find the next thing that can make us better, or undo something that I've messed up in our program.
What made you want to be slightly different in terms of the bilateral, unilateral, Olympic lifting, not Olympic lifting? And, here I talked about the power complex a lot after hearing it from Jeff Jones. So it wasn't my original thought, just like there's pretty much no real original thoughts in strength and conditioning.
Right.
So before we get into the single leg versus double leg, because I did actually a little bit of research today and you and I can talk about it. But the Olympic lifting and not Olympic lifting, what made you want to explore, like, hey, is there a better way and not be dogmatic?
Yeah. So background on me as a high school kid, my strength coach was Stan Luttrell, who's sort of the in high school sports world, like one of the forefront leaders in Olympic lifting. And so he got me into it early. And so I was just fortunate enough to learn the lifts early, compete in the Olympic lifts, train some really high level Olympic weightlifters. And so I have that background, but I because of that, I don't know what it was. I can't look at strength and conditioning and say, hey, the best way is to be really great. If you're an Olympian in weightlifting, you're going to be a really good football player. That's just not necessarily true. And so as I started to develop my philosophy, which is Olympic based, I think I just began to see the advantages of some of these other voices, right? Like someone like Nick or Boyle or some of those guys that who seemed really sharp and seemed to have their head on the right way and weren't doing what I was doing, but seemed to be doing things in ways that I wanted to replicate, right? And so I think as my eyes started to open up outside the Olympic lifting world and I started to get into collegiate and high school strength and conditioning and see, man, like that type of philosophy really does help a baseball player, and maybe in a better way than being really good at the snatch does. And so that began to open up my eyes and forced me to sort of explore, is my dogmatism hurting my athletes? And my job is to put them on the field in the best form possible. And if that means not doing something that I really love, but doing something that's better for them, I think that world started to open up for me as I explored, especially as technology grew and I could see what other people were doing. I think for a lot of reasons, it's really easy to be dogmatic when you don't look at anything but yourself. And Twitter and Instagram doesn't really let you do that. And so for some degrees, it was really good voices and really good influences to help me to kind of open up and see like what you're doing is great, but there are other things that are great too, and maybe include them or replace them.
Why
Yeah.
do you think strength coaches have like decided to hang our hat on if you're not able to teach an Olympic lift, then you're not a good strength coach?
I think there is a pride factor to being good at teaching the Olympic lifts. Like that takes a lot of it's a high skill and it takes a lot of time and
But
you
so
can't
is
just do it.
sprinting and changing direction. So, like, again, why did we choose as a profession? Like, I'm a younger strength coach too. I'm only 37. I've only been doing this since I was for 16 years. So, like, that's not that long. And it's like, why did the old heads, like, why was that the one? I don't know.
I think they're sexy. Like I think watching somebody clean and jerk
It,
405 pounds is
you're right.
sexy.
It
It's way
really is.
sexier than talking about force application into the ground on a sprint mechanic. You know,
Amen to
it's
that.
just way sexier than that. Like,
It is. It really is.
you
It
know,
is
and for
gorgeous.
in our world, man, watching somebody smoothly move through something like that and do it with clean precision, like it's attractive. And so I see how like, again, this is where the internet, man, you start to see like, it's just not as sexy as going slow-mo of Usain Bolt running 100 is, I mean, it's sexy, but
Yeah.
it doesn't look like,
No.
it certainly doesn't look like, you know, Carlos Nasser snatching 170, 180 kilos. Like, I think just the attractiveness made Olympic lifts that way. And like, oh, see that? I can coach that. I can do that. And there's a little bit of pride underneath, like, you see that sexy thing you really like? I can do that. And if you can't, you suck. I just, first of all, that's wrong. What they see on the internet.
Get CEUs faster, cheaper, and more convenient than ever before with Strength Coach Network. Hey, it's Justin, here to tell you about how Strength Coach Network can now help you out with our premium membership and CEUs to the NSCA and CSCCa. Upon signing up for our premium membership, you will get 2.0 or 10 CEUs immediately. That is an entire year's worth of CEUs that you are able to access from the convenience of your office. No traveling for conferences, no waiting on flights, no eating out, no expensive hotels. Just the good stuff from great coaches. Now, if you need extra CEUs for past years during the reporting period, we can bundle Fundamentals 1 or 2, which also come with 2.0 or 10 CEUs to your purchase. That way, you're able to take care of your CEUs for the best price, most convenient, and learn from some of the best coaches. If you want more help with this, email us at service@strengthcoachnetwork or visit us at strengthcoachnetwork.com, and I would be delighted to help you out.
You could have just had them play marbles and they probably would have done it. Like they're that good. Like the people you see moving that kind of weight are freak shows. Like nobody had to teach Usain Bolt to run fast. They just had to work on the finer mechanics. That dude was going to run fast regardless. And so I think to some degree it was just like the attractiveness and the sexiness of the Olympic lifts that made them that way.
That's
Yeah.
a very, very, very good point. Let's then dive into the single versus double leg. So you mentioned Boyle, and Boyle and I were talking back and forth because he was talking about research from Alex Natera about the load and how much of it is lifted with your torso versus lifted with your legs. Had you read any of the research from Alex? Because I don't know exactly what the study was.
No, I haven't. I have not read that research, especially lifting with torso and
Like, how
Travis.
much do you say that the torso is like? Sure, the torso holds the load, but to say that it's
Right.
the one, like that was weird.
When I think about function of the torso in a movement like even a split squat or a back squat, the function of the torso shouldn't be to lift.
No,
And so if I'm doing my job, I'm gonna give again, like, I don't care what the exercise is. What am I trying to accomplish here? And if I'm trying to accomplish lifting with my torso, there's 1,000 better exercises than a back squat. And so like if I'm giving a kid a back squat and it's accomplishing lifting with my torso, then I need to change the exercise, or I just need to be a better coach and teach them how to do it better. But like I think for me, it all boils down to like, what am I trying to accomplish and what exercise helps me get to that, like that into the equal sign. And that's where you talk about single leg and double leg, like that you can't put them in the same bucket. Like they accomplish the same things. They don't. And so I'm not really going to say I'm one or the other. I'm looking for an X, and whatever that is at the end of the equal sign is what I'm going to do. I don't care what happens on the plus and minus side, as long as I get to the end of the equal sign where I'm looking for. And so that's where, again, weightlifters would say, in my community, and we're getting better, would say, why would I do a single leg? I just get so much more bang for my buck with a back squat. I'm like, sure, but there's also other things you don't get with a back squat that I can get with a really heavy safety bar split squat, that I've seen work out the way it's supposed to work out. And so I think some of the research is just affirming what most strength coaches kind of know. And also, like, anybody with eyeballs can see that some people are set up to back squat well and get what they need from it, where others just like biomechanically, it's not the right exercise for them, and it's not going to set them up to success. And you're going to end up with your really bad moment arms that really set them up for shearing and back pain. If you just change exercise, you maybe avoid it altogether. So
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm glad that you said that. And so what I did today was I was like, all right, I ran through, and it was on my Hawken Dynamic Force Plates. I did a body weight back squat. I did 3 reps of a body weight back squat 3 times. Took a minute break. In in between all the sets, there was a 30-second break. Then I did a goblet squat with 35 pounds, a goblet squat with 70 pounds, and I did a back squat with 135 pounds. And so the force plates was looking at right and left leg. Then I did a split squat with the right leg in front, 2 rounds body weight. Then I cut the weight in half, right, from the goblet regular squat. So I did a 20 pound, technically not in half because I didn't have a 17 and a half. And then I did a 35 pound split squat. I didn't have room to do a barbell, so I'm going to wind up redoing this research again.
yeah,
Then I did left leg, same thing, right? Then I did a true single leg squat, sitting to a box and giving me stability in the bottom. This is where Boyle and I disagree, because the box gives you stability. Like, I don't care what anybody says.
Right. Ask a kid which one they'd rather do.
Correct.
There's a reason.
Correct. And so I did that to a really low box, a medium box, body weight, and then I did it low, medium, holding a 10. I did it on the right and the left leg. And then I did a skater squat, right leg, left leg, body weight, and holding a 10. And what I found was on the back squat with 135 pounds, that's what gave me the highest peak force on right or left leg.
Yeah.
Out of the squat moments. All right. And so the peak force on the right leg was 1,191. So 1191. Left leg was 1168. When I went split squat goblet with a 35, so the heaviest load of it, I was able to produce 10% more force on each leg. So right leg was 1309, left leg was 1277.
Okay.
When I went to a box, single leg squat onto a box, on my right leg, holding a 10-pound plate and going to the lower box, I was 17% more. So it was a 1397 force into the force plates. On the left leg, it was actually the body weight version of it, and it was to the medium box, and it was 21% higher. It was 1416. And then when I did the skater squat, right leg, both of them was holding a 10. It was right leg was 1461, so 21% more. And then it was 17% more on the skater squat, holding a 10, 1368. Now, this is just me. I didn't max it out. It was just a couple of different conditions with 30-second rest in between the rounds, a minute rest in between the different, a minute to 2 minutes in the different conditions. But I did find that there was more force application into the force plates doing a single leg than doing a back squat based off of those different conditions. So that's where it's like, listen, it is important to do the single leg movements. But the other part of it was, again, I didn't max it out. I didn't max out any of the movements. So I think there's that limitation. I think there's also the limitation that I didn't do the hand supported back squat, because you can really load that up and you can really load up the split squats. But the other aspect of it is where you'd have to look into it. And the thing that'd be really interesting to do would be like serum testosterone levels of like, well, you get more testosterone release when you lift heavy weights, right? The true system, like that's why if you want more testosterone release, instead of doing isolative shoulder press, you do an overhead press, right? A global compound movement. So it's like you get more testosterone release, and you do get the torso anti-extension movement when done properly of the torso bracing. So to say that you're going to completely not back squat just because of, yes, you can get some more ground force application, but let's not throw baby out with the bathwater and lose everything that we would get with the back squat.
Right. And I think also take into account sport selection. Am I a bilateral, unilateral sport? Am I off 2 feet or 1 foot? It's great. It's great that I can get more power off of a single leg squat, but if I'm never in a single leg situation, or 80% of the time I'm not in a single leg situation, how much application or carryover am I going to get to my sport? And vice versa, man. And like, if I live on 1 foot, here's where I would just say this. Both of those things, what you just did a really good job stating like the positive attributes of both movements. my thing, and this is what I say to my staff and and young strength coaches, is like, don't throw either out.
What's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, Team Builder. I've been using Team Builder since 2019 when I was at Towson. I still use it with my remote athletes. I also use it at Goldfinch, which is the private sector gym I train at, and we use it at Centennial, which is the high school that I'm working at. Now, if you're printing on lift cards because you say, oh, I can't afford Team Builder, guess what? Team Builder has a pre-written grant that you can locate on their website. You simply change the name of you, your organization, and the areas that they highlighted, and they can help you get Team Builder at your facility, your university, whatever it is, so that way you can optimize how you train your athletes with this software. Now, Team Builder is also a part owner in the Plyomat. The Plyomat is something that I utilize at Goldfinch, and it helps you be able to see how high somebody jumped, the ground contact time, and RSI. You can get all that conveniently right there. You can reach out to your rep from Team Builder to be able to get more information on the Plyomat. It's fast, it's reliable, it's convenient, and it's trusted by coaches worldwide. Check them out as well as Team Builder in the link down below.
Yes. Utilize both, but put the emphasis, like if I'm trying to produce force on single leg, because that's in a sport, then I'm going to make that one heavy. And then I'm going to do some accommodating resistance work on a back squat to work on to rate of force development, right? And use it. Here's the thing. I just don't think, hey, all I do is single leg squats. So I'm going to do single leg squats always, all the time. And I'm going to do, well, okay, but like I can give that range of motion and those joints a break by switching to another movement and chasing a different speed or strength characteristic.
You know what I used to do?
I think that's important.
What I used to do, because I was psychopathic about it, especially in the in season, right? Like off season, you have more time to train them, right?
Right.
In season, you don't, because typically you got 2 days a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of looking at it like a weekly microcycle of like, all right, I got 2 sessions, I viewed it as a 2-week microcycle where, all right, if it's a lower emphasis day, and if I do a heavy unilateral movement, split squat, rear foot elevated, step up, whatever,
right.
the next week, I will address a heavy bilateral movement. So I can just change the movement throughout the course of the season. I can change the tempo, but then I'm never going longer than 1 week from touching that stimulus, whether it's unilateral or bilateral. And that's what I recommend to our listeners out there. Same thing with like a horizontal push or a horizontal pull or vertical press or a vertical pull. Like if you're really crunched on time and you're like, man, I don't want to go a 4 or 5 week phase without touching this thing, or a 3-week phase, just look at your in season from a 2-week micro, and that will give you a little bit more peace of mind.
Yeah, we're really lucky at Hebron. It's like our strength and conditioning is a class built into their schedule. So in season or out of season, I see them 5 days a week for 35 minutes. 35 minutes is the perfect amount of time to keep me from doing too much and give me enough opportunity to touch everything I need in a week and not touch too much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that, I think the beauty of getting every athlete on campus, 6th grade to 12th grade, 5 days a week for 35 minutes, it forces us to be creative. You only have 35 minutes, but at the same time, it allows us to touch something that we need every single week. In a way that's really, really progressive. And like, we're able to look at a whole year for an athlete's training schedule and say, all right, when are we touching what's our goals? And then attack it that way. It really does. Like, it provides us so much freedom because I don't have to think like that's really creative. Like, all right, I'm going to make this a microcycle for 2 weeks. I don't have to do that because I got 5, I got a microcycle every week.
No, that's awesome. And it's very similar to the guest we just had on last week. So if you did not hear it, Brandon Davis, very similar situation where he had 40 minutes, but it was every single day. And then, so if the class, you're coming in and you're training, like so many number of teams don't have to train before or after school because cross country, like, and again, I'm not saying that these athletes don't matter, but typically size, hypertrophy doesn't matter as much in these sports. So, the cross country coach, the swimming coach, field hockey coach, they're happy that their athletes are training, 5 times 40 is 20, 3 hours and 20 minutes a week. They don't need to go before and after school. Their athletes are touching so many things. And the fact that you have that too, let's dive into your X's and O's on that. Yeah.
So we're really lucky. So I just, one of the reasons I'm at the school that I'm at is that it's a requirement of every athlete to be in the weight room. What's cool is if you're a sixth grade boy trying to play basketball, your basketball practice is during the school day. So
What?
like, yeah, so like their third period is basketball practice. And part of their built-in practice time is the weight room. So they're in the weight room twice a week as part of their practice. Now, if they want to
Dude.
practice more after school, they can, but they have to work around the varsity teams. And so it's like a crazy cool setup that like if you're playing a sport, you don't have an option. It is part of your schedule built right in. And so I see them, which you want to talk about development and like long-term thinking. When I get a sixth grade boy knowing he's going to be a varsity impact player in 11th grade, probably, that's a long runway, man. That gives me 5 years to build this kid so that we get to 11th grade. I get to, at that point, we're at the very top end of the iceberg. And so I think for us that as far as X's and O's go, we're similar-ish to a tier system. I mean, that was an early influence for me. Like we try to touch every part of the body every day, and then we vary the stimulus based on what we're doing that day. And we're also Olympic based. So they're going to do something from the ground. Well, I'll say from the ground on their feet on a platform every single day, some sort of derivative of the Olympic lifts. They're going to touch some sort of squat pattern every day. They're going to touch some sort of upper body pattern every single day. And then, the stimulus will be based on age, sport, and development level. And so we're lucky because I can take a kid in sixth grade, do a lot of teaching, get them in ninth grade, do a lot of base work, get them to 11th grade, and we're training for impact varsity sport. And so those stimulus and how often I touch absolute strength work versus working on speed strength or strength speed work will depend on, am I a ninth grade boy that just needs to get stronger and bigger? Or am I an 11th grader who's getting recruited and I need to be able to pop off at any given point in time, And so a lot of it depends on that. And we're really lucky. We have really elite sports and we have really elite coaches who trust what we're doing and listen to us. And so we get to kind of do whatever we want because they trust us to do it. Now they give us good suggestions, and I try to remind our coaches, like, a suggestion isn't a suggestion. If they're suggesting it, it's a recommendation. But we're really lucky in our setup.
My question that I had to you is, what do you think is, like, because I'm looking at these notes here, and some of the coaches are like, all right, I don't individualize because it made it too hard. I'm able to like, what do you think about it?
Individualization is needs-based in our program. So what I mean is this is how we do it. I create a general template because we have probably 20 to 23, 25% of our athletes are just kids that love to train. They don't play a sport. They just love to train and want to come lift weights. They love our weight room culture and they come bang away. And so I create just a general physical preparation template and everything operates from that. And so we split from that. So then I take that program and like, all right, now I'm going to create an off-season football program for January. And then, so inside of that, then, like, that's what we're doing. But then you got a kid who has a high propensity for back injury. We'll just use back squats since we were talking about it. Every time he back squats, it flares up, it causes a muscle spasm. I'm going to individualize off of that out of need, not out of like fancy. Like, I don't know that at an off season, I don't need to necessarily separate a 10th grader's. He's a DB and he's different than the quarterback. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but if what I'm doing is causing them not to get better because of an anthropomorphic issue, then I'm going to individualize away. And hey, we're not going to back squat. You're going to go belt squat instead. And that's what it's like, more so replacement of exercise to create the stimulus we're chasing rather than individualization for like specialization's sake.
Good for you on that.
That's how we do that.
Based. Yeah, you're principle based on that.
Yeah, and so now we will in season. I will change some stuff based on their position. So a goalie is going to get a different workout in season for soccer than a forward, just because there's like wildly different. Those are two different sports, legitimately at that point. And our linemen are going to get a little different work than our corners in season. But it's still like, they're still going to squat on the same days. It's just going to look like we're chasing something different. Like a lineman, when he fires off the line, he makes contact at like 0.75, 0.8 meters per second. So we're going to live in that space with our VBT world. Whereas like our corners, those first two steps, we got to be flying. So they're going to do some more dynamic work. And I'm just going to take that same day we're squatting and just change just those little tweaks on like what they're chasing from a stimulus standpoint. They may do the same movement. They're just chasing a different stimulus.
Where did you come up with that idea? Bravo. That's nice.
Well, I mean, we again are just highly supported by our administrative staff. So we have a perch, a VBT unit in every single station. So if you're working out, I've got a camera to see how fast you're moving, and that affords me that freedom. And again, the the best thing I would tell strength coaches to do who aren't forced to do this is go to practice and watch and just take notes. Like take notes on what you see, and that'll force you, if you're at all forward thinking, that'll force you to change what you're doing because you'll see something. I don't know jack about soccer, man.
What's up, everybody? Taking a quick break from the show to talk about one of our sponsors, Hawken Dynamic. I've been using Hawken Dynamics ever since I was at Towson. Still utilize it today when I'm at the private sector at Goldfinch. Even brought the plates from Goldfinch over to Centennial to do some force plate testing with the football team there. We've done force plate testing with other high school athletes. It is something that you need to get. If you want more help with it about how to practically use it and you want to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com. Not only do I utilize it with lower body assessments, I use it with upper body assessments, plyo push-ups, prone Y assessments. You can also utilize it for what I call an upper body isometric mid thigh pull, where essentially you're doing a push-up at the strongest range and you're pushing into an immovable force, so a barbell, same way you do an isometric mid thigh pull. Like I said, been using them for years. Valid, reliable. The customer service is fantastic. Go check out Hawken Dynamic in the link down below, and you will not be disappointed.
I never played soccer. I didn't. I had to have somebody explain to me what offsides was. Like I don't know jack about soccer. But when I go watch a practice, or I watch our men's team, who's like is currently the best in the state. When I go watch them practice, I'm like, okay, like now I see why Gunji is like he needs something different than this guy. But and then you take what you see with your eyes and you compare it to what we see on our GPS data, and all of a sudden like the picture starts to form. And if you're a forward thinking strength coach, you can't look at that picture and think, you know what, I'm gonna give them all the same things. Like that's just laziness. And so I think when I say individualization, I think it comes from a desire to give the kid the best thing that they need in that moment in their season to help them accomplish their goals. And that forces me to change some of that. And so when I say chasing a different stimulus, that's just the stimulus that they most often are finding themselves having to chase in their sport, right? I just don't think that I can't live underneath the theme that like stronger is always better.
More strength, some strength good, more strength better.
And I'm not saying, I love getting strong.
I love to be
strong.
Sure.
We are a strong program. Like we get strong.
Yep.
And I think that there is a base level of strength you got to chase. But goodness gracious, like if I'm back squatting we had a kid who back squatted. He's playing it. He just went to Virginia early for football. He back squatted, I think it was 560 for a double, at about 0.45 meters per second. He doesn't need 570. You know, what he needs is 500 at 0.8 meters per second. And he can do that. He's nasty. And so I think that's the beauty of technology is it helped me see what I couldn't or didn't like even think to see, you know, like I think that's what Perch has done for me is like, help me see like, golly, it is actually more impressive to watch a kid do 500 pounds at 0.75 than it is to watch him do 600 at 0.4. And the kids get excited about it too. That's the other thing. It shifted their whole mindset is I can tell them to go chase a certain speed and they get excited to chase that speed. And that's been a big emphasis in our program is like chasing the stimulus versus chasing the load.
Dude. Okay. So big emphasis on your program that you're chasing that. You said you were a young strength coach. You've been there for 6 years. The question that I'm teeing up here as I look through these other guests' notes is what was your journey to getting hired, right? Because some of these coaches are like, hey, I had to be hired as like this kind of a teacher. And then I was a weight room supervisor. So it comes in all shapes and sizes. What was your path? How'd you get there?
Yeah, I don't know many stories that look like this one. And, I didn't draw it up the way I drew it up. I got my bachelor's degree in religion. I got my master's in Christian education. I was planning on graduating my master's, coming back to my home. I was living in Texas at the time, coming back to my home state and planning a church and being a pastor. And I wish I could make this up. Like every time I tried to step through that door, like it was a no, we're going to pick the other guy. No. Like I've never been told no so many times in like a 6-month period in my entire life. Like it was set up. I'm not lying to you. I had churches call me and ask me to apply. Like, oh, perfect, I'll apply. And then they told me no. Like, why did we waste anyway? And so what happened was, my wife and I had our first kid, and we were looking to come back home to be near family. As we were looking, no lie, I was leading an Olympic lifting seminar in Marietta, Georgia, and one of the guys that attended was a principal of a local school, and he loved what I was saying. He loved my attitude, and he called me and actually messaged me on Facebook, and asked me if I knew anybody like me that would be interested in a strength and conditioning job, and I raised my hand and said, me. I need a job. We want to move back to Georgia. And that's legitimately how I got in the field. And so then I started, and at that point it just became networking, connections, and visiting, and getting to know that. And the job I'm at now, Hebron Christian Academy, I had a young strength coach underneath me that I was mentoring. And I said, look, man, go to the high school you graduated from, volunteer as a community coach, get in the weight room and help, and just be the best employee out there. Like get there early, all the stuff. Like get there early, work your tail off. You're a single dude. Like go knock it out of the park. And so they eventually hired him as a strength coach there. And then he left to go to the Navy SEALs, and he called me and asked me if I wanted the job. And so I ended up taking the job of a kid that I mentored, and that's how I ended up where I'm at. Like that, I wish that were you can't draw. Nobody sits you down and as a 19-year-old say, hey, here's your degree plan, and this is how it's going to work, and gives you that story. Like, that's not how it works. But it really did. At the same time, like my Olympic lifting company was rolling, and we were putting people on the Olympic stage. A lot of that was like starting to merge together, and it sort of worked out.
I mean, God's plan is always better. God's plan and God's time is always better than ours. We're very reluctant all the time. But anybody,
if you had told me that God's plan was for me to get told no by every church that I was ever going to ask, I just would have laughed at you. It's like, come on, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's the easy route.
Close. God and I are close. He's going to listen.
We're tight. He's got to say yes. Like, come on.
He's going to say yes to me.
Come on. Boy.
That's the thing. Like sometimes when you ask and pray for things, the answer is no, yes, no, or not yet. And like now for you, that's just your venture where you're evangelicizing and serving and doing your ministry there. Wow.
Yeah. And that's what you want to talk about an inner struggle. I had to like flip my whole mind out because you feel like a failure, I'm supposed to be doing ministry.
You and then to say no, that would have messed with me.
It's so hard for me to wrap my head around, because then you feel like you're a selling out. Like I'm a sellout. I didn't do what God's plan was for my life, what God called me to do. I'm selling out. This isn't ministry. My parents are like, well, you're going to do that still? What's the you got to deal with all that mess. And then you realize about 4 years in, when kids are graduating and they not only are really good at whatever they're chasing, but they love the Lord. And you're like, okay, wait a minute. That's weird. That's weird how like I didn't actually know what I was doing here, and the one who made me did. I should probably just trusted him from the jump, but like that's not how it went. You're 25 years old and getting told no, you think you're a failure.
Dude, so kudos to you though for not giving up. Like you were just like, hey, you know what? There was a little bit of a setback here. I'm not done. It's like, we're good. We're keep going. Good for you.
Yeah. So very, very cool. I again, like I ended up here, and now I'm like, oh, I know exactly. Cause now all my kids go to this school.
Nice.
They're getting a really great education. Yep. They're in an environment that I trust, that is helping them. Like just things you don't think about at 25.
No.
That now at 37, I'm like, oh gosh, I would have never thought that far. But no crap. Like, of course you wouldn't. So, yeah. So, it's an interesting story. But now I think if I were telling strength coaches that listen, the answer is just go be in the arena, go volunteer, go give your life away. Like, go do it. Yeah. If you crush it, it'll work out, work really hard.
You're another example of, again, the same guy that I was talking with yesterday. So Brandon was actually the guy who was he was working as an intern for Cody Hughes, and so he was working down there at Madison Academy and did so good, formed such a good relationship with the basketball coach as a volunteer, and would help run and practice with the team.
Yep.
And then they were able, like, because the head basketball, women's coach, and Cody were vouching for him, they found like $5,000 to pay him for a semester. And then they found him a job somewhere else, and because he did so good and the school didn't want to lose him, they found a little bit more money. And then
Yep.
that next guy did a really good job and he left for a better job, and now the person that's Cody's assistant has a full-time job, full thing set up, and
Yep.
it all started from that Brandon doing a great bang up job. So anybody
Yep.
listening to this, like, don't think that the things that you're doing don't matter. Like, you still have to do it. And this is me saying it too. Like, when I'm Greg's assistant, on a part-time basis, and I'm not getting paid to do it either. But like, how can I lay down the things to potentially, hey, these other coaches that see what I can bring and how I can help Greg out, who knows who the person behind me can be coming in and helping out Greg, or
That's
what
right.
it can, like, you're laying down tracks, whether you realize it or not. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. I used Powerlift when I was at Harvard, Maryland, and the University of Iowa. I was also part of the staff that had the new weight room at the University of Iowa, the 32 rack, beautiful facility. I was a part of that. I also have Powerlift's equipment nowadays. Powerlift Strong, made here in the great state of Iowa in the great country of the United States. They're able to work with you on any customizations that you need, logos, height, whatever it is, the limitations that you have. Their equipment is strong. The people there, they're very good people. Check them out in the link down below. And if you have any questions on how to work with them, reach out to us at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com, and we would be delighted to help.
And that's what people like. You're planting seeds you may never see the fruit from, but and your story and my story, like there's 1,000 of them. Like Christian, the guy that was before me at Hebron, his salary is actually paid by Jeff Saturday. So they didn't
What?
have he was the head football coach at the time, and so they didn't have a full time strength coach. He was just doing strength coach, and they wanted one, and they didn't have the money for it. So Saturday paid his salary,
What?
and like made it happen for a
What's the
year,
Jeff
and then
Saturday connection?
well, so Jeff Saturday lives in the area. He's an incredible guy. He was coaching football at he was the head football coach at Hebron at the time, and he knew we needed a dedicated strength coach. And so when Christian showed up, was volunteering, and was doing a really good job, and was high capacity, Jeff was like, "Hey, we need to add you as the guy," and they didn't have the money for it at the time, and so they added him as the guy. And then what Christian did that set me up is he crushed it. Like he absolutely annihilated it, and they were like, "Oh, this is an incredible position." And then the school came behind and funded it. And so he created value and need, then the school funded it, and then he left, and guess who stepped in, right? So had he not showed up and crushed it, I wouldn't be where I'm at. But he showed up, worked his tail off. Jeff paid for it for a year, and then the school came behind and paid for it. Crazy, right? Like that's stuff you don't realize. Like Christian didn't realize that just like working his tail off was going to set me and my family up down the road.
Shout out Jeff Saturday, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but if you know anything about that dude, he was a freaking workhorse in the league. Like
He was awesome.
that. Yeah. He would tell stories, and I'm like, that dude just, the only way he got there is just like outworking everybody, you know? There's some videos of him like yelling at Peyton Manning in the middle of the game.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, no, Peyton.
Awesome.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that, because you see, I think centers nowadays are kind of living off of him, where it was Saturday, then it was Jason Kelsey being these centers that now see everything and can call and can make these checks. Like Saturday started that.
Well, and if you meet him, it makes sense. Like he's sharp. He knows what he's doing. You can tell that he's got more going on up here than you sit on the surface. Like it was incredible to get to work with him for a year and just be around him and the way he thinks. Yeah, it was awesome.
Where do you see all of this strength and conditioning? Like where is everything going in the next 5 years, right? Like 2030.
Yeah, I can't speak for the collegiate world because I'm not there. I don't know enough about like the type of kid that's coming into collegiate strength and conditioning, especially with NIL and how that's changing it. I know that I always admired the like Tommy Moffitt type environment where we're just gonna yell and scream and get after it, and that we're gonna outwork everybody in the collegiate world. But I can tell you that in the high school world, what once was like a really deplorable football coach writes with the chalkboard, "Hey, we're going to do incline bench 5x5 and back squat 5x10." And like, and then I'm going to sit on my desk with my feet propped up like that. That no longer, it's not even like allowed anymore. Like that whole wave of what once was is gone. And I think what we're seeing in the high school environment is that people are like, because strength coaches are doing more than just letting it be a meathead gym where people bang their head against the brick wall. and they're turning it into labs, and they're talking about the physics, and they're integrating what they do outside their weight room, right? You're collaborating with the stats class, you're collaborating with anatomy and phys, and you're collaborating with these other people, so that weight room leaks out of the weight room into the classroom. You're starting to see administrations see the value of the room, and that's how I got 2 full-time assistants, so I'm a full-time strength coach with 2 full-time assistants at a high school level. And I wish that I were, and I'm not the only one, right? Like I can name a school right down the road from us, big time, right? Wesleyan has 2 really qualified strength coaches. Tucker could run his own program right now, but he's the assistant to Wolf, and that program is solid. And we're just seeing that happen, that the profession at the high school level is becoming really professional. And I think in 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to see high school programs putting out strength coaches that could make the jump to college right out of being an intern in a high school program, just because of how professional those are. I could see high school programs being great internships before I go be an assistant strength coach at a major Division I program, just because of how professional they're becoming. Last year, my sports scientist, this is a crazy story. I had a girl who was a senior year. She took her last semester of her senior year and became an intern for me, and learned everything there was to know about GPS, ran our GPS for last semester of her senior year. And then she took a gap year and was our sports scientist for a year, and just like full blow straight into all the GPS work for us, handled all of our sports, handled it, the whole thing, and could talk the language. I took her with me to a conference at Duke with Catapult, and she got to meet some people, make some connections. And I'm not playing. She's 19 years old at the University of Georgia, and she's working on the sports science staff for Georgia football, doing Catapult for them. And I think that sounds crazy, but I think that's going to become the norm. Like, they're going to get exposed at the high school level and go be really valuable at 19, 20 years old at a college somewhere where it would have taken college to give them exposure. Now they're getting exposed at high school and showing up prepared in college. I think that's where we're headed.
I agree with you more, actually.
As technology gets more accessible too, it used to be that like you couldn't afford to do that.
It was the haves and the have-nots because you didn't have the money for it.
Right. I think it's just getting so accessible. If you look down the street, this football team that won the highest classification state championship, Grayson, in our state, they have a full-time strength coach, and they got a full-time guy, Joe Stokowski, who is a freaking stud. That cat knows everything there is to know, and all he does is run speed and sports science stuff for them, and he is a genius.
You got to link me up with him after this episode.
Yes,
so I can have him on.
He starts talking, and I just shut up. Start to write it down.
Y'all are in the same. No, you're not in Alabama. You're in Georgia. I was about to say same as. So there's not the competitive moving up if you go to the state qualification and all that stuff.
That's coming next year. Competitive balance starts next year. They're actually voting on it tomorrow, on whether or not we're going to have competitive balance. Where if you're in the top 5 of your classification, you move up to the next classification. The bottom 5, you move down. Yeah. That's coming next year, because they couldn't figure out this like private school, public school mix, and that's how they're going to solve the problem. And I'm really excited about it. I think it'll create really great opportunities for our athletes to play at a high level.
Let's dive into the senior international USAW stuff. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, long story short, I did some weightlifting as a athlete. I was never really quite set up. Like I'm 5'10". I should have been about 5'2" if I was going to be really good at that. Unless I was going to weigh, unless I wanted to weigh 102 kilos, which I don't. I weighed at my top form, I was 69 kilos. Weight, it was 5'10", so like it didn't work out well. Made a couple international things and did some well at national level. But then what happened is I started to get into my career. Some athletes from weightlifting started reaching out, asking me if I'd be interested in coaching them.
What's up, y'all? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, Vitruve. I've been utilizing Vitruve for a while now, and I absolutely love the convenience of this app. The encoder is at a price that you cannot beat compared to the competitors. Also, I don't personally like the camera apps. I've known that they continue to break down, and I really enjoy having this encoder attached directly to the bar. Vitruve does that. Not only does it do that, but it'll show me velocity loss during the set, shows me average velocity, all of it right within the app. Not only that, for the app on the individual athlete, there's a Vitruve Teams app where now as the coach, I can see all the results from my athletes. I can API that into my team builder, and now everything that I'm trying to do, get better competition, better intent in the weight room, I am able to do with Vitruve. If you want more information about them, click the link down below or you can ask us questions directly at service@strengthcoachnetwork.com, and we would love to answer those questions for you.
And so I was a young guy who was in the field and started, and one thing led to another. And as I started to taper out of my career and started to work more professionally and train these like 17, 18-year-olds, they started to get better. And they were set up, right? They had the genetic gifts. They were 5 foot nothing. And then next thing you know, we've got 3 people qualifying for the Olympics in Tokyo and 4 people in Paris and like medalists at the Olympic Games. That kind of thing started to happen. I'll be honest with you, what made the difference, what made the switch for me there is I started at the same time I started coaching them, I started working in high school strength and conditioning. Yeah. And so the need to track and monitor volume and intensity and tonnage at the high school level, because I had to manage stress right so that they could go to the field to play, like practice and not be dead. That sort of flirted and started to marinate into what I started doing for weightlifting. And all of a sudden I'm measuring tonnage and intensity and volume and tracking that and seeing what's successful and not. And at that time, nobody was really doing that in weightlifting in America. And it made a big difference. Our athletes didn't get injured. Their accessory workouts looked like high school strength programs. Like they were doing single leg work, which is odd for a weightlifter. They were doing jumps. They were doing pull-ups and chin-ups and that kind of stuff, which was odd for weightlifters. And it made the difference. It started to set us apart. And all of a sudden, these athletes started, if you can stay healthy in weightlifting and you're genetically gifted, you got a shot. And that's what happened. And we ended up with some really great athletes who made some splash on the world stage.
What was the most nerve-wracking part about being a coach, watching somebody on that stage?
The most nerve-wracking part is because you stand there, you're watching them, like you're probably 10 feet from them. The most nerve-wracking part is knowing what they're capable of and having no control on whether or not they're going to accomplish it. And then if they don't accomplish it, asking the question of why they didn't. The ground that I had to plow do the most work in was mental resilience in times of stress. Like when you're on a platform by yourself, third lift for the medal, and you miss it, and it's something you have made before in training and you're capable of in that moment, trying to find the why in that moment was the biggest challenge for me. I can't remember the number. It was over 10 athletes to the world championships in 2021. It was the first time that one coach had brought that many people to one competition at the world level from, I think we had 5 or 6 different countries represented. It was a big deal. And I was really proud of myself. We sucked. I'm talking about, like, we look back on that now, we're like, man, nobody did well. Like maybe one of them, I think one person, when I look back, I was like, yeah, Mo did well. Everybody had a hard time. And so you come back from that trip, you go there on a high and you come back and you're on the airplane flying back and you're like, what in the world? We were so ready. We were prepped, and then everybody flopped. And so the biggest challenge isn't the preparation. There's a lot of controllables there. It's finding ways to make the preparation uncontrollable so that it imitates competition. And so that was the biggest challenge for me, is trying to find ways to make training emulate the mental pressure of competition. Which became a unique thing we really banged on in this last quad and saw some really great fruit, finding ways to like make them feel like, and you have to be really extreme. You say it out loud, people are like, you're crazy. Like I would never do that. And I'm like, but it works. And putting them in situations where they feel the weight of the moment is really, really important. Especially at that, because in weightlifting, if you mess up, it could cost you everything. Right? Like one missed lift changes everything. Yeah. And so it's not like, oh, you got a holding penalty and now you go back to the next play. Like it changes the whole plan if you miss, because you only get 3.
Yeah. And then now it tightens you up, because Lord forbid if it's your opener on,
right.
Like,
well, and the percentage, if you miss the opener, the percentage chance of you missing the second lift jumps to like 50%. And you miss the second one, it's like 80% that you're going to miss the third. And so like you can't miss the opener, but you also can't be so conservative on the opener that you keep yourself out of the fight. And so how do you put the pressure on of an opener that's right on the edge of it, but you got to have confidence you're going to make it? And how do you practice that in training? It's crazy.
Outside of just I tried to emulate that with the pro day prep, where it's like, hey, we're going to do these under ideal situations. And then I used to have I would have us do our pro day prep right after spring ball practice where the team's out there. I was like, hey, watch this and heckle him. Like, and I was like, literally make him feel the pressure of this moment, because I don't have NFL scouts here that are going to be tightening him up, but he needs to be tightened up in this moment and be able to have his footwork done.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like that, because you also, like, I don't know enough about NFL prep to know, like, what's the wait time between time to go. Do they tell you you're up in 20 minutes and actually turns into 45? What do you do with that? What happens when that curveball comes? Or, like, I mean, for us, it was like, hey, if you miss this lift, the whole game changes. So in training, I'd say, all right, like, hey, if you miss this lift, the person to your left has to end their training session. Like, they're done for the day. If you're training next to an Olympian and you know that if I miss this lift, that Olympian goes home, that pressure, like the weight of that for an 18, 19, 20-year-old is wild, but it made us so much more resilient, because the first time you miss it and they have to pack up and their training session's over and you feel that, it emulates the same, like, they've got to understand that kind of pressure and in environments that are safe so that we get out there, we're ready. So stuff like that.
What are some of the things that you think that we should double down in, that are pushing the field forward at whatever level it is?
I think I would say this is a kind of a low hanging fruit, but it's also very hard. I think that staffing matters. Finding people to add to your staff that can do more than just coach the room is a really big deal, or desire to do more than just coach the room. I think we just have, for so long, especially at the high school level, have had a very small porthole to look through at what we're looking at when athlete development. And I think the more that we can learn about them out of the weight room, the better. And so one of the things that I would hope to see us push is what can we, how do we get nutrition services to high school kids? How do we get recovery services? And like, how do we get them to actually do it? Like, go to bed, and drink water. Like, because they're doing it at the college level, man. Like, they figured that out. And so I think the next wave of stuff is like all the stuff that doesn't involve strength. How do we deal with nutrition? How do we deal with recovery? How do we really honestly, not just for Instagram and Twitter posts, like, really measure readiness so that we can dial up or dial down legitimately and not just say we are, like, that kind of real work. If you're a strength coach, you can't also do that. Like, that's not a thing that both can do. If you're writing program design, you're on the floor all day and you're rocking and rolling in the high school world, you can't also be in charge of dietetics. You can't also be in charge of recovery. You can't also be in charge of readiness. Like, I think the game becomes creating staffing around athlete development at the high school level. I've seen a couple high schools do it and it looks incredible. Yeah. In the dream world, high schools are doing it right because they're helping kids learn life skills like eating right and sleeping right and mitigating recovery in that way. But there's got to be somebody whose job it is to make that happen, and they got to have the resources to do it. And so I'm hoping that, like, from a litigation standpoint, we end up with more opportunity for kids to choose where they want to go to school. And when they choose where to go to school, it gives them opportunity for resources. Those resources, then I would love to be able to walk out of the weight room and walk into my locker room, and there's a protein shake sitting in your locker room that's built for your goals, that is a dietitian has already figured out. And so you just crush that thing as you're changing clothes before you go to your science class. Yeah. That's the world I want to see us go to. People think I'm crazy. They don't think that can happen at high school level. They also said GPS and BBT wasn't going to be available at high school level. One day in my lifetime, that's going to be a reality.
I agree too, especially because there is the funding for it. So let's not act like there's not. And just the fact that, like, it also just takes adults being adults and being like, hey, young kids, like, I heard somebody say one time, like, oh, you can't be so hard on these high school kids. They're still trying to, figure out life, and they're just trying to, learn, like, who's their boyfriend or their girlfriend going to be. And I was like, you know what? No, if
disagree.
You could say the exact same thing about college, then why are you letting them do, like, no, I could completely disagree. Like, that is not what you need to be doing. You don't need to be, like, you need the adults to be adults, and help you navigate this process, not just be like, oh yeah, go be like, no, like let's actually help you, and let's actually put a real expectation on
Well,
young
they'll meet it,
kids.
man. They'll meet it. The
Correct.
people who have said like, I'm not going to lower my expectations because you're 15. I'm going to keep them where they should be. Those kids meet it. It doesn't happen overnight, but as a school, they'll start to meet those expectations. And I'm not going to lower them for sure. I'm not going to lower them. I'm pushing them to be better than they think they can be, because most great strength coach, most great coaches, most great teachers can see what a kid has the possibility to be before the kid will ever see it. And so it's my job to help them see it and chase it. And that lowering expectations doesn't allow that.
Not even a little bit.
Never.
I want to wrap it up at that point, because I couldn't agree with you more. I could literally talk to you for at least 3 hours, but I don't want to waste your time, man. I know you got classes to teach, so I greatly appreciate you coming on and allowing me to learn from you. Is there anything that you kind of want to hang your hat on, or last things that you want to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, I would just, first of all, I'd say this, I told you my degree plan to get to where I'm at. It didn't involve kinesiology. I think my best science was non-science majors, bio and weather and climate. So like, I would say, first of all, if you want to get in this field, there's a lot of avenues to get there. Don't be discouraged if you're not if you got a math degree or something. Secondarily, man, that the reason I'm where I'm at is strength coaches all over the world, literally the world, opened their door to me and let me come in and see and take notes and ask questions and follow up. And so, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, how do I get where he is? Listen, I'm not playing. Email me and I'll give you my cell phone number and we will talk on the phone. My daughter plays club volleyball, so I sit in a parking lot for 3 hours anyway every day, working. So I'd love to talk to you on the phone. But I would just say, like, strength coaches are far more open to having you come visit and ask questions and eat lunch with them than people think they are. You got to make the effort to get there, and you'll probably walk away from that experience with more than you thought you would. And so I would just, man, our room's wide open. My cell phone's wide open. I'd love to talk to you. If I said something today that you're like, that's stupid, that will not work, please do not, like, please call me, because it probably is, like, it might be. And I would love to hear your perspective on it. And maybe let me change something because what I said is dumb. You just never, you have no idea how many times, like, I've had a strength coach be like, well, have you thought about it like this? I'm like, oh, you're right. So that would be my thing, is like, strength coaches' doors are wide open. Just don't think you're stuck. Get in your car, get on a plane, go somewhere. You'll find that you'll learn way more from sitting down with somebody or watching them work their room than you will from anything else.
Amen to that, man. You have a great rest of your day. It was awesome talking to you, Spencer.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, click right here for videos just like that, and make sure you click here to subscribe to our channel. Have a great rest of your day.